Hey, Rick, what did you eat last night?
Oh my God, Kate. Do you remember a couple podcast episodes ago I threw into the ring my first amusement park dinner?
Yes.
I'm going to throw into the ring my second amusement park dinner.
Second amusement park dinner.
Yeah.
All right.
So when I was in Disney many weeks ago, I went to this place called Citricos, which is in Disney's Grand Floridian Resort. And that's how it sounds. It's very grand. It's very big. It's very beautiful. Definitely considered one of their best restaurants. And I was very excited because I'd never been there because it's super pricey and I wouldn't go there. But work was paying, so all good.
Yes.
So I had an arancini ball. And what was different about this, it wasn't really a ball. It was shaped into a cone. It had smoked tomatoes, mozzarella, and herb aioli. And, you know, I'm generally up for a good arancini ball, but this one was tough because it was a little bit larger, obviously, than a ball because it had to be cone-shaped. And there was a lot of rice and not enough cheese. The cheese was like a little ball in the middle of the rice. So I had to keep biting through sort of flavorless rice to get to the ball of cheese. So that was a bit of a bummer. And then
That is the danger of arancini, I find. Yes.
Yes, totally. And then I had, the Citricos made up for it because I had the most wonderful pumpkin scallop risotto. So here I am again, coming back to eating scallops. So it was this risotto. So it was a Parmesan risotto. It had pumpkin in it, sage, maple syrup, and it came with the pancetta crisp, which I had them put on the side, and I offered up to one of my companions.
Once again, very nice of you.
And then that was all sprinkled, and the scallops were on top. And I think the scallops had actually been cooked in a little bit of the maple syrup to get some brown sauce. They had this really lovely browning on them. And then it was all covered with pumpkin seeds. And let me tell you, I just love a good scallop because just like, you know, the gentle octopus, it's so easy to overcook it, and I was really hesitant to get it because I was like, oh, the menu's pretty much meat heavy, and one of the other options on the menu was like a whole fish. And if you remember from my last amusement park episode, I pulled apart a whole fish, and I'm like, I just can't do it again. But I have to say, when scallops are cooked just right, they are so wonderful. They melt in your mouth almost. They're buttery. They just sort of fall apart and dissolve. And the combination of that Parmesan risotto and the pumpkin sage, it just made it so wonderful. And then I love the pumpkin seeds, how it gave it a little bit of crunch at the end. Made me so happy.
Sounds lovely, except for the scallops.
Well, I just watched a special on scallops the other day. I'm like, now I can't eat scallops anymore because they're amazing creatures also. I've really got to keep looking at this. How about you? What did you eat?
I made a pan pizza, like a deep dish pan pizza in my cast iron skillet.
Ooh, that sounds delightful.
Was so good. It was one of those America's Test Kitchen or Cook's Country recipes, and I had to buy bread flour, which has, I guess, a higher protein content, and so it creates the gluten differently, so it was important for the texture. And you had to make the dough the day before, and it has a number of steps to it, none of which are difficult, but it is a thing. It's a whole big thing. And I put on it some Italian sausage that my mom and I made at Christmas, like made from scratch with very expensive pork, which is sort of a ridiculous thing to make Italian sausage out of. But, you know, if you want it to be humanely raised, you don't have a lot of options. So I had this sausage in my freezer, and so I put it on the pizza, and then you put this, you put cheese around the edge, and you stick it to the edge of the pan so it caramelizes around the edge of the crust, and you get this crispy, not quite burnt, but very crunchy cheese around the crust. There's a pizza place here in Chicago called Pequod's that's known for that kind of crust, and now I know how they do it. And it was so good. I normally like thin crust. I don't like thick crust pizzas, but this was crispy and golden. And even though it was like an inch thick, it was like air. It was a pillow of dough. So it was very, very soft and light. And then it had this lovely crispiness at the bottom and lots of great toppings. And I made the sauce, and it was absolutely gorgeous. Oh, and a little green pepper I put on top just to sort of cut through all the richness.
God, that
it was
sounds
lovely.
Tasty.
It was really great.
Isn't that interesting about the flour and the difference it can make? I've never really considered that before when you said that.
No, I hadn't either because it specifically said bread flour. And I was like, I didn't want to have to buy bread flour because you have to buy flour in such enormous containers.
Yeah.
That I thought, oh, geez. So I looked it up to see what was different about bread flour. And then when I saw the answer, I thought, oh, well, I guess it's important. So I now will have to make this many times because I have the flour.
Good call. Oh, that sounds delightful.
Yeah, but I think if just the crust by itself, I was thinking if I don't top it, but just do olive oil and some like rosemary and salt, it would make an amazing focaccia or something, you know?
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm salivating right now.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of You Won't Believe What I Ate Last Night. I'm Kate.
And I'm Rick.
And this is our ongoing conversation about food, health, weight management, and our endeavor to be and stay healthy in a tasty world.
With love, kindness, and compassion towards ourselves and others. Season 5 of You Won't Believe What I Ate Last Night is brought to you by Smart Building Technologies, a leading provider of building automation solutions, bringing smart technologies along with energy savings to the workplace. Find out more at smartbuildingtech.com. That's smartbuildingtech.com. In today's episode, we're talking about what we're eating while sheltering in place.
We are so interested to get your feedback on this as well. What you guys are cooking, what you're ordering, how you're eating. Please, please, please send us your info. And maybe we'll do a follow-up talking about what other people are doing well. You can email us at youwon'tbelievewhatIate@gmail.com. You can go through our website, youwon'tbelievewhatIate.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram. Let us know how you are eating while you're sheltering in place.
Just do a voice memo on your phone and send it off. It's so easy.
Totally. And while you're at it, maybe have a look down and give us some stars and a review and let people know that they can find a new fun podcast by finding us. That would be lovely. Thank you.
And I don't know if you guys have any friends that have a lot of time on their hands right now. Do you, Kate? But if you do, I would suggest.
Although I also find I find myself resistant to that concept because I'm still so busy. I'm like, I don't have that much time.
It's
However,
true. You and I are still very busy. We're not the ones with seems to be luxurious amounts of time on our hands.
Exactly. I'm still employed enough that even though I'm only paid for one of the hours a day that I work, I'm still working a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
So whether you have a lot of time, whether you have the same amount of time, you're probably not commuting anymore, but maybe you're still walking your pet or working on the treadmill or whatever, or still going for a walk or a jog. So hopefully you're still listening and you can invite others to join us.
Let's say you have Zoom fatigue, that you don't want to do one more Zoom meeting. You know what you should say to your friend that suggests it? Say, you know what, friend? I'll have a Zoom meeting with you after you listen to this fabulous podcast. And then we'll talk about it.
I love that. So that's the plan. So
Totally.
We are your cure for Zoom fatigue.
It's a new thing. # Zoom fatigue.
It really is. Good Lord.
I know, right? All right, Kate. So what would you say are your overall observations about having to feed yourself during the shelter in place? How has it been for you?
Well, it's interesting. It's evolved because I'm now in week 6, I want to say. So it's been a long time. And I started being really, really cautious and not being sure what the supply chain was going to be like and freezing things and stocking up within reason, like stocking up meaning making sure I have one of everything I use, not like getting a case of anything.
Right.
And for the first week, I barely ate anything. It was just definitely weird. And I was just so in a different space that I really wasn't eating at all.
I was struck by the amount of times when we talked on the phone and you said you hadn't eaten anything. I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was interesting. And it was partly anxiety, partly fear, partly panic, partly just listening to my body, which wasn't hungry. And I was like, okay, cool. Like that doesn't happen that often. So great. I'm going to ride that. And then just being busy. And I never have a day where I sit at the computer all day. So having that kind of sort of simpler day as opposed to my normal one, I never just bothered to get up to eat. So I was just here and working. So anyway, so it started out where I wasn't really eating much of anything. And then I was eating super, super healthy for a couple of weeks. And then I started to treat myself to cooking more fun things. And then I'm still a little bit in that phase, and now it's winding down again to moving back into more healthy options with the occasional treat. So it's definitely been a little bit of a roller coaster for me.
Nice.
And I've only ordered in once, which is weird because normally I eat out at least twice a week, most weeks, probably frequently more, but at least twice a week. And I order in, I don't even know, it depends on the month, but certainly at least once a month. So I would typically in this amount of time have ordered in or eaten out, I don't know, 10 or 12 times at least, and it's only been once. So that's been the biggest shift. And it's a combination of the fact that I have stuff at home, that I suddenly have time to cook. And I love to cook. So having the time to cook is one of the upsides for me of this whole experience. And also my finances have shifted quite substantially. So being really mindful of my money has been another reason that I haven't been ordering in or ordering in or getting takeout as much. So it's been all over the place. How about you?
I would say I definitely started out a little similar to you. I was definitely buying one of everything. I wanted to make sure I had a really good supply to make whatever I wanted. I was in a little bit of, I wasn't sure what mode to be in, if I should be in panic mode. I knew I didn't want to be in hoarding mode because, when this whole thing really shifted, you and I were together in Chicago, and we were in Chicago when really the first shutdown started happening of restaurants closing. So I flew home that weekend. And that was the height of my sort of panic and fear because I was on a plane with only 17 other people. And that was really weird. And so in the first couple of weeks, I was definitely ordering in a lot. I was wanting a lot of the things that I was really sort of used to. I was also really upset about what I knew and thought was going to happen in relation to the restaurant industry. So it was really important for me to sort of patronize at least all the local and non-conglomeration businesses that I could. So that was really important to me. And then I'd say about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, it really started shifting where I was like, Rick, you have so much food in this house. You need to cook it. When I was ordering in a lot, I really sort of doubled down on my meditation practice, meaning doing a longer session in the morning and definitely something in the evening. And that really helped tamp things down a lot because I felt like what I was normally doing just wasn't enough. So once I did that, I was a little bit more focused and I could start cooking more because you do love cooking. And I think you love cooking more than I love cooking. So I still see the whole cooking thing as a little bit laborious. So I definitely shifted to making more healthy meals. And I also froze a lot of things in the beginning because I'm like, oh my God, now I have all this stuff in the freezer I have to use. And so now I'm definitely in a really good groove, I think, I'm still ordering in maybe once a week and
perfect
cooking a lot. Yeah, totally. When I was ordering in, I'd order 2 meals. So I would have lots of food to get me through the week. So I only really had to cook maybe once a week or twice with everything that I had ordered in. But now I'm I feel like I've gotten a lot more grounded and I'm definitely more into healthier options, which makes me happy. And you'll be surprised, Kate, how eating well affects your attitude and your stress level.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Yeah. So it's almost as though what we eat affects how we feel.
It's crazy. We need to get the word out.
Yeah. Write that down. Put it on a t-shirt.
Oh my God.
Let the people know. Yeah. So what are some of the things? So now we're going to talk about, you guys, we're going to talk about some of the stuff that we've been cooking and eating. So we're going to talk about things we've been cooking, things we've been ordering, and with a focus on things that we're cooking to hopefully inspire you.
So I'm going to throw in the first thing that I really loved, which was I had about 4 or 5 onions that I bought when I was out shopping, not keeping track of how many I bought. So I did this huge day of caramelizing 6 onions. I caramelized them and they took well over an hour and I got them nice and brown. And then when they were done, I got out my muffin pan, and then I put pieces of plastic wrap in each little muffin tin, and then I spooned in caramelized onions into each one of those, wrapped them up, bagged them, and froze them. And that was just such a little thing of gold. I didn't realize how much I would like it and how useful it would be. So I've been able to pull those out. They go really wonderful with quinoa. They really go really well with farro. And this is out with not a lot of other things going on in there. If I had some other vegetables, I would throw that in. And I also love putting them on bread with just a little bit of mozzarella and toasting them. It was such a great thing that I did, that it was something super flavorful and really tasty that got me a lot of mileage.
I remember you sent me a picture as you were doing it, and they were just these gorgeous caramelized onions, and in a text, and I wrote back, like, what did that take, 10 or 15 minutes? Because you guys know our thing about how we hate it when recipes are like, caramelize the onions till they're chestnut brown. This should take about 20 minutes. Like, you are lying. It takes an hour.
Just put them in, go for a nap. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Oh, my Lord. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, super helpful. How about you?
For the first few weeks, I was eating salad almost every day. And then the last couple times I bought greens, they started to kind of wilt on me. And I was like, all right, I think maybe I need a break from daily salad. But my regular salad is some kind of green. And I've been using a superfood mix that was like, chard and kale, and baby chard, baby kale, maybe some arugula, just a whole bunch of really, really healthy, excellent greens, which I tend to just dress with balsamic vinegar, olive oil, and this seasoning thing that I use from Penzeys, which is salt, pepper, onion, garlic, and lemon. And it's my go-to seasoning. And then I've been super into red peppers and scallions. Those have been my major go-to veggies. So I put those on every salad, and then either chicken or chickpeas, depending on what I have around, avocado if I have it, blue cheese, sunflower seeds. And that is my go-to salad. And it is unbelievably delicious. I love it so much. It's really, really barely dressed. And it's definitely less greens than stuff. And the blue cheese, and sometimes a hard-boiled egg. Sometimes a hard-boiled egg would go in there too. So it kind of depends on how much protein I've got, what my sort of protein options are. And if I do put chicken in, it was usually like maybe an ounce. If I have a chicken breast that's in the fridge, I'll cut off like a slice and then dice it up into tiny bits and throw it in there just for a little mouthfeel as much as anything else. So my salads were a big, big thing. So it's probably about time to go back to those.
That sounds like an amazing salad. The things I love the most, which I often don't think about, are the blue cheese, just a crumble on top, because that totally just transforms a salad, right? It takes it up another level. And then it was sunflower seeds you put on?
Yeah, and both of those are Trader Joe's staples. So I use their crumbled blue cheese and their salted roasted sunflower seeds.
And I have sunflower seeds, but I often forget to put them on, but they really help with the salad.
Are
flavorful.
Are they raw or roasted and salted?
Mine are raw.
See, I mean, I would forget too if they were raw because they're not as good.
Well, I don't forget because I don't like them. I just forget because they're sitting in my cabinet. And I'm like, after the salad, I'm like, oh, right. Sunflower seeds.
Right. I'm saying for me.
Yeah. No, I got that.
Yeah, totally. So the toasty, salty element is part of what I enjoy about them, but certainly the crunch, and they're less crunchy, but yeah, totally. Yeah. The blue cheese and sunflower, so good. And then, if there's avocado in there, it creates part of the dressing. It's really good. I also made some quinoa and made this quinoa bowl that was a lot of the similar ingredients. It was red pepper, scallions, avocado, and then parsley and fresh thyme because I had those in my fridge and I was trying to use them up. And just tossing those together, and then an arugula salad with basically all those things on it. So in multiple days, eating multiple ingredients, but in slightly different ways. That's
amazing. And a quinoa bowl is so simple, right? Because it's so easy to put together based on what you have at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I can jump back, you had said you put hard-boiled eggs on your salad. So I wanted to update you, Kate, because I made another batch of hard-boiled eggs. And for you longtime listeners, you know that Kate introduced me to the Instant Pot. And really, like one of the first things you do in an Instant Pot is you cook hard-boiled eggs. It's super simple. 5, 5, and 5, right?
It's one of the selling points, yes.
Anyone
it's how
can cook.
Perfect they turn out every time.
Well, you can imagine where this is going. It hasn't quite worked out for me that way. I cook them. I do the 5, 5, and 5. Sometimes I've done 4, 4, and 4 because I think I'm overcooking them too much.
You cook for 5, then there's 5 minutes of natural release.
Right, thank you.
And then 5 minutes of soaking in ice water.
Thank you. Yeah. So I would do all that. And the soaking in ice water is supposed to help retract the skin so that they peel really easily. So none of that
the
ever
membrane
happened.
comes away from the egg.
Yeah. So that never happened to me because whenever I went to peel them, they were always a disaster. So it's an ongoing joke between Kate and I. I'm always like, oh my God, I cooked hard-boiled eggs and we've talked about it. Nothing works. So I cooked them 5, 5, and 5. When I cut one open, it was overcooked. There was a ring of green around the yellow this time. It was unbelievable, and I was so annoyed. Now, I didn't throw the eggs away. I still ate them, but I was like, what the heck, Instant Pot?
How did they peel?
They were still tough to peel. One peeled well out of the whole batch.
So they say that the age of the egg has a lot to do with that kind of thing, as well as the green. But I still, I have not come up with a formula around age of egg for that. And I still, out of, I don't know how many hundreds of eggs I've cooked in the Instant Pot over the years that I've had it. Well, probably not hundreds, but a lot. I've maybe had like 1 or 2% that don't peel properly. Normally it's like magic. They just fall out of their shell.
And the amount of times I cook and I'm always shouting, I'm usually screaming in my kitchen like, fuck, when the eggs don't come out well.
Well, I would too. Yes.
But I stick with it.
I think my version of that is chickpeas, because I've been cooking chickpeas in the Instant Pot and I followed Rick's exact recipe and they're crunchy. Like they're definitely not cooked. But I have been using this garlic flavored better than bouillon in the cooking liquid. So the chickpeas are amazing. And then they have this really, really flavorful broth that they're cooked in as well, which unfortunately I then can't throw away because it's too tasty and it has that stuff in it. So I have to repurpose and find another use for it. But I'm being creative about that. I tend to save that kind of thing because I'm frugal. And I don't want to waste it. It's delicious.
Totally.
But yeah, I think it's the same thing. Like your chickpeas are always perfect and I haven't mastered that. So.
And it's so funny because I think the Instant Pot is something that it doesn't take a lot of mastery sometimes. I mean, with more complicated things,
yes.
It does. But I always think with eggs, I'm like, oh, I can't even get eggs right.
Yeah, like, and how can you and I do the exact same thing for eggs and chickpeas and have completely different results? It's weird.
So one of the things I've been doing is I'm lucky enough that I have this little restaurant down at the wharf by where I live. So it's about a 7-minute walk. And it's a restaurant that shut down, but they have a little store downstairs. It's called Officina. It's a 3-floor Italian restaurant. So I go there, and the great thing is they have exactly what I need every week. They usually have onions, they have a potato, they have a lemon, they have a lime. I don't know what exact fresh vegetables they're going to have, but they'll have a pepper or a zucchini or asparagus. So that's sort of been my blessing because it keeps me out of the main grocery store.
And arugula.
Oh my God, they have the best arugula. Like some of the best arugula I've had.
I'm envious of this arugula. Yeah, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, most peppery arugula I've ever had. It was so spectacular. I'm like, oh, this is really that type of arugula where you realize that you don't need to put anything else on an arugula salad because the arugula itself is so amazing, which is not often the case.
Yes.
This week, the week I went, they had asparagus. So I got this lovely bunch of asparagus, and then I roasted it in the oven until it got nice and charred, nice and black. And then I made an asparagus and shallot soup. I did some ghee. I did some shallots. And once that sort of cooked for a little bit, I put in the asparagus. I chopped it up. And once that cooked a little bit, I put some hot pepper flakes. And then I put in some veggie broth and just let it go. And when that was done, I added just a little bit of cream, not a whole lot, but just enough to give it that texture. And then I obviously salt and pepper. And it was so good because the shallots were really, obviously a really great taste. But then I also took some of the shallots.
I'm literally salivating. That sounds so good.
Wait for it. And I fried the shallots in the oven. So they got that crispy thing.
I love a crispy shallot.
I topped the asparagus and shallot soup with crispy shallots and some creme fraiche.
Creme fraiche. I'm going to do it every time you say it.
Because let me tell you, I still have about half a container and then I'm using it up on everything.
Gonna come up. All right. Awesome.
And
that sounds delicious.
It was so simple. And we talked a lot about this, I think we have about soups. And sometimes we don't want to make a lot of soups because it makes a lot and you freeze it and you wind up eating it for like 3 years. But this was a small batch of asparagus. And it made the perfect amount of soup. I got like 3 servings out of it. It was perfect. It lasted the whole week. It was really wonderful.
You know, and when I make a soup, I feel like A, it's just as much trouble to make 10 servings as 3, so I do it. And then
Yes.
B, sometimes it's hard to cut it back. So
Agreed.
yeah, it sounds delightful.
That
There was
first
nothing
thing.
in it to thicken it though, right? There wasn't a potato. Like I would have
No,
expected a potato or something to thicken it, but I guess the cream.
just a little. And I pulled back on the cream because I was like, don't go insane, Rick. But yeah, and it was sort of perfect.
And no
Because
Parmesan.
no Parmesan, because I think the asparagus itself holds together really well. And I just modulated how much broth I put in because obviously I didn't want it to become too soupy, but I just thought it came out spectacular.
And then you pureed it, right? Like you blended
with an
it.
immersion
Yeah.
blender. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
That sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
After I moved past salads, basically the next thing I decided I needed to do, or sort of concurrently overlapping with that, was clear out what was already in my freezer, because I had
Oh,
a
wow.
whole issue around freezer. And unlike you, I do make a whole vat of things and freeze it. So I had a whole just shit ton of stuff in my freezer that needed to be used. So one of the first things I did, well, I pulled out the smallest thing in my freezer, which was the least helpful of all, but were these sausages that my mother had made last year. And I made bangers and mash. So I made an onion gravy because I also had a bunch of onions. And so I made this amazing onion gravy. I made bangers and mash, so these sausages and mashed potatoes, which were amazing. I found this old container in there of this amazing sauce that came from. I cooked short ribs for somebody's birthday, and it had this tomato-based, Italian-based sauce with it that I don't even remember what was in it because it was so long ago. And the short ribs were long gone, but there was still this whole container of this sauce that was so good. I kept it in the freezer, so I just had that with potatoes as a meal one time. And so that was amazing. I had a bone-in skin on chicken breast, a couple of those. So I cooked those and saved the bones to make for stock, and then used the chicken in salads or with that, some more of that onion gravy with potatoes. And I pulled out some of those broccoli and sweet potato patties, which I think we talked about in a previous episode. And I made a sauce out of black bean soup, which I also had in my freezer. I had black bean soup in there. So I made a sauce out of black bean soup and sour cream to go with those sweet potato patties. So I got rid of one of my 2 containers of black bean soup in the freezer, because normally I invite people over to share my freezer food when I have to empty my freezer, and I haven't been able to. Yeah. So that was my other thing, was a huge amount of freezer pulls.
That's amazing. Every time you talk about bangers and mash, I often wish I was still eating meat because I feel like you would be able to steer me through some really great bangers and mash.
Oh.
I'm always a little envious of it. So I made also a carrot and ginger soup. One of the things I had done is I bought a lot of ginger. I peeled it and I froze it in little amounts. So I have a lot of it in the freezer. And it's been such a useful thing to pull out. Because, a lot of times I was thinking, we always talk so much about what we freeze and why we should freeze it and how useful it is. But a lot of times it sits there because you're not compelled to use it. But what's so interesting about cooking during this time is I'm using a lot of stuff in my freezer. It's not sitting. And that makes me really, really happy because I feel like it's not going to waste. It's not going to get freezer burned. So again, I only had like 3 sort of large carrots. And I basically put some onion and I put some ghee. I cooked that. I added a ton of ginger. You would have been proud of me because I'm like, I'm going to see how much ginger I can handle here. And cooked that for a little bit. And then I chopped the carrots and I put them in, cooked that for a little bit, added some of the veggie broth, salt, pepper, super simple, super easy, let it cook. And then I used an immersion blender, pureed all that. And at the end, wait for it, Kate, I topped it with creme fraiche.
Creme fraiche.
And I just thought, God, and this, along with the asparagus soup I talked about, I was like, years ago, I never would have touched a soup without looking at a recipe. And the fact that I'm just doing it now, whipping it up and just trusting it's all going to work out, and that whole idea of tasting it, adding what you need more of, so great. Oh, I also added a little bit of cream, just a bit to help thicken it up a little bit at the end. Not a lot, but a little bit of cream into the ginger soup. So tasty.
I love a carrot ginger soup. That sounds delicious.
And again, just the right amount. I had like 3, I think maybe I had 3.5, 4 servings and worked perfectly throughout the week. I was so pleased.
I'm wanting to make soup, but I'm not wanting to eat soup. So I've had to
Totally.
really curtail my soup impulses because there's a lot of soups I would like to cook and maybe have one bowl of, but I'm not going to make one bowl of soup. So, and I don't really have room in my freezer for 12 bowls of soup. So I'm not so much in the soup vein as much in terms of what I've been cooking. But when you talk about it, it makes me want it.
You know where I've been eating it too is I love eating it in the morning, particularly if I wound up eating a little bit late the night before. I don't have a proper breakfast and I'm hungry around 10:30 or 11. A soup is the best thing to tide you over until your proper meal time.
Soup is probably a really good breakfast in terms of our digestion.
You're right. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's a good idea. Maybe I should consider that because I don't stand on ceremony in terms of what I eat at what time of day. I will definitely eat a dinner food for breakfast. I mean, I won't cook like a chicken breast in the morning or anything, but leftovers, I will certainly kind of eat whatever. I have done some baking. Really? Yeah, not as much as I would like. Yeah, well, I would like to bake more, but it's just me. And so I'm much more drawn to make savory things than I am sweet things. So I haven't done as much baking, but I made a loaf of bread, which was good. My whole wheat bread, which was fine. I made a box of brownies from a brownie mix. Ghirardelli's chocolate chip brownies are really good. And I shared some with my neighbors. So I gave some of those to my neighbors. I made an incredibly good banana bread. I followed the recipe from America's Test Kitchen for their best banana bread. And I love their recipes. They're always so good. And the one thing I have learned is that there's this banana bread recipe from my youth, which came from McCormick's. And McCormick's was trying to sell spices. So it was a spicy banana bread. And it involved cinnamon, cardamom, and mace. And so what I've learned over the years is that any banana bread recipe is improved by adding a teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/8 of a teaspoon of cardamom and mace.
Really?
And it's super, super tasty. Yeah.
All right.
So
nice.
that was super delicious. I really loved that.
That sounds so good.
I made another one of those pizzas that we talked about at the beginning of the episode today.
Oh, fun.
Which requires having the dough sit overnight. So that was another thing that felt like baking. And then I made peanut butter cookies is the other thing I made because I had peanut butter for another thing. And so I made my grandmother's peanut butter cookies. And the first ones I made were a little sandy. They didn't have a good texture. And I wasn't sure if maybe I didn't make it right, if I didn't cream the butter and sugar together enough. And so it was a little dry. But then the next ones I cooked for a shorter amount of time and it was much better.
How many cookies did that batch make?
I don't know yet because I'm keeping the dough in the fridge in a container and I'm just making a few at a time when I want them.
God love you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
really the way to do it. Last night I made too many and I have like 4 sitting out there for tonight. And
just calling to you.
Theoretically tomorrow. Yeah, exactly. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, they're little. So who knows? I could eat all 4 of them. So yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. 2 or 3 dozen probably.
Okay. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for listening. And again, just record something on your voice memo. Let us know what you're cooking, what you're doing from your home.
Have you done anything creative? Have you pulled a whole bunch of weird stuff out of your pantry, fridge, or freezer and made something delicious? Please share that with us and we'll either play it on the show or we'll describe it to people because if you've done it, other people will benefit from it. So let us know how you're hanging in there.
Rate and review us. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.